The United Nations General Assembly had encountered countless disputes throughout the years, but none compared to the events of today. The atmosphere was so tense, it seemed as though even the air itself paused in suspense. Benjamin Netanyahu sat hunched over his paperwork, flanked by aides who appeared as though they'd aged significantly in just a few hours. Cameras were already fixed on him. Murmurs in several languages echoed throughout the vast hall. Everyone was aware of the reason they had gathered. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso had delivered a global ultimatum. Israel had 72 hours to respond, or African nations would begin severing diplomatic relations. It was daring, direct, and proudly African. The deadline had now passed, and attention locked on Netanyahu. As he stood and approached the podium, the silence that fell was not of reverence but of expectancy. The Israeli Prime Minister adjusted his collar. The strain of the past few days was visible in how he carried himself. Gone was the confident, dismissive persona from previous weeks. He resembled a man trapped. He opened with words directed at President Traoré and the honorable citizens of Burkina Faso. If there had been any confusion or perceived offense, he claimed, it was never intentional. At that instant, the mood was unmistakable. He wasn't accepting blame, he was deflecting. Downplaying, he continued for nearly 4 minutes, repeating non-committal statements about shared partnerships and mutual goals, but offered no apology, no recognition of wrongdoing, no nod to Africa's justified anger. Then, in what felt like a media tactic, Netanyahu extended his arm toward Troy's section, a symbolic offer of peace, a gesture he'd used successfully with other world figures for years, but this time, it failed. President Traoré rose to his feet. He looked directly at Netanyahu, then turned his back and left. No statements, no theatrics, no notice, just a quiet exit. That silence thundered. The entire room seemed to freeze in. That moment, Netanyahu remained there, arm hanging in the air, in what many will remember as the most humbling moment of his political career. Cameras flashed, delegates stared, some whispered, a few gasped. But Traoré didn't hesitate. He exited, calmly, escorted by his security team, his head held high, his gaze steady. Outside, journalists scrambled to ask him why he didn't acknowledge the gesture. His response was brief. Africa does not shake hands with disrespect. That short clip has now amassed over 38 million views across social platforms. The hashtag Troy walks away was trending in over 20 countries. Analysts from the United States to South Africa called it the most courageous act in recent diplomatic memory. In Kenya, university students filled the streets, chanting, "Respect is earned, not demanded." In Nigeria, activists painted murals of Troy turning away from a crumbling wall where Netanyahu's image was seen fracturing. In Paris, thousands from the African diaspora gathered silently outside the Israeli embassy, standing in place for 72 minutes in honor of the expired ultimatum. This went beyond politics. It was deeply personal. For years, African leaders' voices had been overlooked, distorted, diluted, or erased. But Troy delivered his message loudly without uttering a word, and that frightened global powers. Western outlets tried to reshape the story. Some headlines claimed it was a diplomatic miscommunication. Others labeled it a missed chance for dialogue. But the public wasn't misled, because what unfolded wasn't confusion, it was revelation. A global official failed to apologize for openly belittling the intellect, leadership, and honor of an entire country and, by extension, a continent. And that nation's leader refused to descend into debate or pleading. He simply walked away. That is what true power resembles. Even experienced diplomats were left speechless. One retired European Union ambassador remarked, "In 4 decades of service, I've never seen such poise." It was quietly devastating. Netanyahu's silence following the incident has only intensified the backlash. No press release, no conference, no reaction. Because what could he say? The world had already witnessed everything. A single image, Troy turning his back, is now imprinted in the consciousness of millions, and perhaps most significantly, in the minds of Africa's youth. This wasn't merely a rejection of disrespect. It was a guided demonstration of what global self-respect can look like. No yelling, no pleading, just quiet strength under pressure. Next time a foreign official attempts to demean or belittle an African president, they'll remember this. They'll remember Troy's dignified exit and Netanyahu's outstretched hand left unanswered. Where are you watching from? Are you in Africa, the Americas, Europe, Asia? Share your country in the comments. Let your voice contribute to this movement. Like this post if you believe dignity must come before diplomacy.